Okay, so I want you to visualize something for me. A specific kind of contradiction.
A sensory one.
Exactly. You are standing in front of a brand new industrial building. It's all architectural perfections, sleek lines, energy-efficient glass. Everything about it just screams the future.
Mm-hmm.
And it was built by a company, FlexiCharge, that is explicitly dedicated to the green energy transition. Their entire business model is about getting fossil fuels off the road.
It's the kind of place a politician would love to have a photo op. The perfect symbol of the new economy.
Precisely. But then you start to hear something.
Yeah.
Instead of, the quiet hum of a heat pump, you hear this aggressive, chugging, mechanical roar.
And then the smell hits you.
Yeah, that thick, acrid scent of diesel. Because parked right next to this temple of green energy is a bright red machine, about the size of a compact car, just burning diesel fuel 24/7 to keep the lights on.
It creates a pretty serious cognitive dissonance, doesn't it?
It really does.
A factory designed to build electric vehicle chargers, the very tools for clean air, is being powered by the exact pollutant they're trying to get rid of.
It feels like a glitch in the matrix. But what we're looking at today, it isn't a glitch. It's a feature of the current Dutch energy landscape. We're looking at this company, FlexiCharge and Den Bosch, but they're really just the poster child for a much wider systemic failure. We have thousands of entrepreneurs ready to go green who are being forced by infrastructure failures to burn diesel.
And that's really the heart of it. We often talk about the energy transition as a matter of will. Do we have the political will? Do companies want to change?
Right.
But what makes this so frustrating is that the will is there, the technology is there, the money is there, but the actual plug is missing.
So let's dig into the reality for FlexiCharge.
Yeah.
The owner, Rutger Schuer, he's not doing this for fun. He's stuck.
Oh, completely.
The source material paints a pretty grim picture. He's got this red beast outside just humming away, and it is thirsty.
Very thirsty. We're talking about 800 liters of diesel every 2 weeks.
800 liters. That's a staggering amount for one business.
It's like filling up a huge SUV 10 times a month just to run your office computers in your assembly line. And Sure knows exactly how it looks. He's quoted saying it feels crooked.
Crooked.
Yeah, like twisted or just wrong. He says, it feels crooked that as a manufacturer of EV charging stations, we have to work with diesel.
And I'm guessing this isn't cheap either. Industrial diesel, renting the generator itself.
Yeah.
That's got to hurt the bottom line.
Oh, it's a massive operational expense, an absolute nightmare. You're renting the machine, you're paying a premium for fuel, you're dealing with maintenance. Sure is very clear. He says they tried everything. This was the most feasible solution in the short term.
And I bet feasible is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
It really means the only solution if they want to actually open their doors. It's a survival mechanism.
But how did we get here? How does a modern European economy just run out of space on the grid? Because that's what this is, right? Grid congestion.
It is, but we need to be careful with that term, grid congestion. It sounds like a traffic jam where things just slow down a bit.
Okay.
In the power grid, it's more binary. It's not that the power flows slower. It's that if you add 1 more megawatt, the safety systems could trip and the whole region goes dark.
So it's not a slowdown, it's a hard stop.
Yeah.
A cliff.
Exactly. And FlexiCharge is just one data point. The scale of this hard stop is, well, it's actually terrifying. We're looking at a waiting list of roughly 14,000 businesses.
14,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a waiting list. That's a paralyzed sector of the economy.
And that's just the official list. This is where the data gets murky in a really interesting way. We don't actually know how many of those 14,000 are running on diesel generators right now.
Why not? Are they trying to hide it?
In a way, yeah. It's a shadow stat. There's no central registry for emergency diesel generators used for permanent operations. The government knows it's happening. The grid operators know it's happening, but it's unregulated.
It's in a gray area.
A gray area where companies are quietly solving their own problems because the alternative is to just shut down.
Which makes sense. If you make too much noise about your diesel generator, some regulator might show up and ask about emissions permits.
Exactly. Better to keep the red machine humming in the back. But while we don't have an exact count, we do have a very clear proxy for demand, the rental market.
Ah.
We have some insights from Geert Janssens of Atlas Copco, a huge equipment rental firm.
And I imagine business is good for them. If the grid is broken, the person selling the Band-Aids is doing pretty well.
He is. Jansen says demand is visibly rising. He says they still have some to rent, but not many left. The inventory is just drying up. And he breaks down his customers into two main groups, which really helps us understand the problem.
Okay, so who are the two types of victims here?
Type 1 is the flexicharge situation, the new build. You buy land, build a factory, apply for a connection, and the operator just says, sorry, no, you have zero power.
A total catastrophe for a startup. And the second type?
The second type is, in some ways, even more damaging for the broader economy. These are existing companies. They have power, but they want to expand.
Okay.
Let's say you're a manufacturer. You want to add a second production line. Or maybe you just want to electrify your heating to be greener. You need a bigger connection. The operator says, you can keep what you have, but you can't have any more.
So your growth is capped. The grid is effectively putting a ceiling on your country's GDP.
That is the macroeconomic takeaway. Thousands of businesses are blocked from growing. And when businesses can't grow, they don't hire, they don't innovate, they stall.
Yeah.
So this isn't just an energy story, it's an economic stagnation story that's literally fueled by diesel.
So we have to talk about the entity at the gate here, the grid operator. In this case, it's a company called Enexis. And it's so easy to paint them as the villain, this big, faceless bureaucracy saying no to the nice green entrepreneurs. But I have a feeling the reality inside Enexis is a bit more panicked.
It is. We have the perspective of Hans Slutweg, a board member there. And you're right, he's not some cartoon villain. He's actually very frank about it.
What does he say?
He admits he would rather not have companies using diesel. He gets the absurdity. But he keeps coming back to the physics of the Dutch power grid. It is physically full.
Okay, when he says full, does he mean we aren't generating enough power? Or is it a transport issue, like not enough wind turbines?
It is almost entirely a transport issue. We have plenty of power being generated. In fact, on sunny, windy days, we sometimes have too much. The problem is the copper in the ground.
The infrastructure itself.
The transformers, the substations, the cables, they were designed decades ago for a world where power flowed one way from a big coal plant to your house. Now, power flows in all directions, demand is spiking, and the infrastructure is hitting its physical limits.
The pipes are too small for the amount of water we're trying to push through them.
That's the perfect analogy. And Slutweg's point is that if he says yes to FlexiCharge without upgrading the pipe, he risks blowing up that pipe for everybody.
A blackout.
It's his mandate to keep the lights on for everyone else.
But that leads to the obvious question, the one I know I'd be screaming if I were a business owner. If the demand is there, if the urgency is there, why aren't we just digging trenches 24/7? Why isn't this being treated like a national emergency?
Slutweg lays out three big bottlenecks, and interestingly, money isn't one of them.
Oh, that's surprising.
Enexis has the capital. The problem is execution.
Okay, so let's go through them. What's stopping the shovels?
The first barrier is purely administrative. Permits and procedures. You can't just decide to lay a high-voltage cable from A to B. You have to cross different towns, private land, maybe even a nature reserve. The permitting process alone can take years before you even break ground.
That's the classic bureaucratic paralysis we see everywhere. We want the future, but we have 1,000 rules slowing it down.
Correct. And that feeds right into the second bottleneck, the social aspect. The NMB phenomenon, not in my backyard.
Which is always so ironic in these debates.
Yay.
Everyone wants green energy, but no one wants to look at a substation from their kitchen window.
It's a huge problem. This infrastructure takes up space. Substations are big, they hum. So residents and local councils have the legal right to object, to file appeals. Every single objection adds months, sometimes years, to the timeline.
So we have legal red tape and we have angry neighbors. But let's just imagine the government declared a state of emergency, bypassed all the permits. Could they fix it then?
And this is maybe the most depressing part of it all. No.
Why not?
Because of the third bottleneck, the labor crisis.
A shortage of actual technicians.
It is acute. Slutweg really emphasizes this. There is a massive shortage of the actual people who know how to splice high-voltage cables and install transformers. This isn't a job you can learn over a weekend.
And that's a demographic problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
We have an entire generation of engineers retiring. And for the last 20 years, we haven't been pushing kids into the technical trades.
That's the structural gap. So you have Enexis competing with every other grid operator, every construction firm, every installation company, all fighting over this tiny pool of qualified electricians. Even with all the money and permits in the world, they often can't physically find the crews to do the work.
That really puts Slutweg's comments in context. When he says they're doing everything to solve this, for once, that corporate line might actually be true. They're just checkmated by the labor market.
It's a perfect storm: bureaucracy, social resistance, and labor shortages. And none of those things have a quick fix.
Which brings us to the timeline. This is the part of the source material that just made me wince. If I'm Rutger Schur, burning 800 liters of diesel, I'm praying for a connection next month. But that is not what the forecast says.
No. Slutwig drops a really hard truth. He estimates it could take up to 10 years for these network problems to be fully resolved.
10 years. A decade.
Now, to be fair, that doesn't mean Rutger Schur specifically will have to wait 10 years. But the systemic fix, the point where the grid is no longer a bottleneck for the economy, is a decade away.
That is an eternity in business. If you tell a startup to come back in 2036, they're not going to wait. They'll move to another country, or they'll just buy a bigger diesel generator.
And Schur knows this. The source says that he hopes to get his connection by the end of this year. But it notes he says it with a laugh.
That specific kind of cynical laugh you do to keep from screaming.
Exactly. He hears the rumors, he knows other people who were promised a date, and then it slipped. And slipped again. He says, I hear around me that it often takes longer than promised. So he's just operating under this huge cloud of uncertainty.
And there's a ticking clock for him, too, isn't there? His factory isn't even running at full capacity yet.
Right, that's a key detail. The factory is still being finished. Once he actually ramps up production, his power needs are going to skyrocket. If he's burning 800 liters now just to keep the lights on, what happens when the real assembly lines start running?
He'll be refueling that red machine constantly.
All the time. Which means his carbon footprint goes up, his costs go up, and the irony just gets deeper and deeper.
It really highlights how fragile this whole transition is. We focus so much on the shiny objects, the EV chargers, the solar panels, but we completely ignored the boring stuff, the trenches, the copper, the vocational schools. And now the shiny objects are sitting in the dark, or worse, running on diesel because we didn't do our homework.
It's a very sobering realization. The energy transition isn't just about innovation, it's about logistics. It's just about digging holes in the ground.
And that's the one thing you can't really speed up with an algorithm.
Exactly. Upgrading a national power grid while keeping it live is a monumental civil engineering project. There are no shortcuts.
So we're stuck in this awkward interim period, a gap decade maybe. And that leads me to a question I've been thinking about since I read this material.
Right.
If the solution to a full grid is for 14,000 companies to run their own individual diesel generators for the next few years, have we actually calculated the environmental cost of that?
That's a provocative thought, because think about the efficiency. A massive centralized power plant is relatively efficient, but 14,000 small standalone diesel engines. That is probably the most inefficient, most polluting way to generate electricity imaginable.
Right. So by delaying the grid upgrades because of permits and NGAIs, we might be causing a huge spike in emissions in the short term. The waiting room for the green transition is actually dutier than the old economy was.
It is entirely possible that the carbon cost of this gridlock, at least for this decade, outweighs the gains we're making in other areas. We're taking 2 steps forward with things like EV chargers and 1 giant diesel-themed step back with the generators needed to make them.
That is a heavy thought to end on. Next time you walk past a new building and you hear that low mechanical hum in the background, don't just tune it out.
It might just be the sound of a company that tried to go green and hit a wall.
Literally and figuratively. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another look under the hood of the systems that run our world.
See you then.